Hi guys, I am Nidan Karthik. Today we are going to discuss on the given assignment questions on the Constitution of India. First, how the Constitution of India is drafted, and let's see the history behind it. First, let's see what is the Constitution of India. Constitution of India is the supreme law of the country. It defines the political principle, powers, duties and structure of the policies and the government, fundamental rights and duties of the citizens. For a basic definition, Constitution of India is simply a written document that came in effect on 26 January 1950, which is celebrated as a Republic Day. Our constitution is the longest constitution in the world. Now we know what is Constitution of India. So let's see why we need constitution. Before independence, India was ruled by the British under the Government of India Acts. After freedom, new constitution was necessary to establish self-rule, protect rules and regulations, and establish democratic country. Formation of Constitution Assembly, proposed by P.M. Rao in 1934 and accepted by the Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946. First meeting is held on 9 December 1946 and it has a total number of 389, but after partition it is reduced to 299 members only under the presidency of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. After this, Constitutional Assembly forms drafting committee on 29 August 1947 under the chairman of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He is called as an architect of the Indian Constitution. As I said before, India has the largest constitution in the world by referring various countries like Russia, UK, Ireland, Canada and US. In the effect, 26 November 1949, final draft has been passed and celebrated as a Constitution Day in India and came in effect in 26 January 1950, chosen to honor the Purna Swaraj Declaration, and we celebrate this as a Republic Day of India under the presidency of Rajendra Prasad as a first president. So key features of the Constitution of India is it is the longest written constitution in India, the world, provides fundamental rights and duties, parliament system and federal structures, directive principles of state policies, and it's inspired by the various countries. These are the key significance of the Indian Constitution. To prepare this much long of constitution, it takes 2 years and 11 months of time and 6.3 crores of rupees to construct the constitution. And this constitution is not just a legal document but as a foundation of our democracy, vision and our leaders the hopes of the millions of Indians to justice, liberty and equality. So let's move on to the next topic, Secretary Ministry of Defense versus Babita Punya 2020. It's not just a case but a justice provided to the gender equality for women to be part of the Indian Army. This case dealt with providing permanent commission to the women. Women started recruiting from 1992 for the short service commission. The drawbacks of the short service commission is they can't get promoted or get any pension facilities like that. But for the male candidates, they started as a short service commission and be promoted to the permanent commission, and they will be promoted to the higher levels like colonel, and they get the pension facilities and all the facilities what the army person get. Babita Punya raised 3 issues against the Secretary and Ministry of Defense and against the government. That is, can women officers be denied permanent commission when men are allowed it? And the second one is, can one be excluded from command positions based on the psychological and social factors? Does such exclusion violate Article 14, which is equality before law, and Article 16 is equality in public employment of the Constitution? So let's see what are the accusations set by the government side. Women should not be given command roles because it affects the operational efficiency and psychological difference between the men and women. And army units are male dominated and social norms may cause difficulties. After hearing two sides of their opinion, and the court decides and gives their judgments. Court rejected the arguments that government placed and said equality, denying PC to women is arbitrary and unconstitutional. Psychological difference. Gender and biological cannot be ground for discriminations. Operational efficiency. Ability and dedication, not gender, determines efficiency. Constitutional values. Article 14, 15, and 16 guarantee equality in employment. So judgment is pronounced on 17 February 2020. All women SSC officers can be promoted to the PC and women can hold command positions in non-compact roles and army must treat women officers with fairness, equality and dignity. This case shows the strengthen gender justice in armed force and open the way for women for a gain longer careers in the army and reflect India's commitment to constitutional morality and equality. Babita's case is a milestone for India's legal history to break gender barriers and armed force to uphold the constitutional rights. Let's move on to the next problem. The rapidly growing city facing multiple challenges and problems. In the mainly, they facing pollutions, traffic problem, and proper housing for the citizens. These are the main problems they are facing. So first of all, to solve this, we have to study how the revenue system for the municipal corporation works. So they are main divisions like tax and non-tax revenue systems. Property tax is the main source of income for the municipal corporation and for the government. And then professional tax. It is from the collection from the professionals and salaries employees as income tax and like that. Advertisement tax, it's for the billboard and banners in the cities. Entertainment tax for the cinema events and amusement parks events like that. And non-tax revenue, fees and usage charges, it's for the water charge, electricity and waste management charges. Rent from municipal properties, like lands, shops, like that they get tax from the shops owners, markets and community halls owned by the corporation. Licensing and permit taxes, government grants funds received from the state and central government schemes. These are the main source of revenue for the municipal corporation. Now see what are the empowerment done under the 74th Constitutional Amendment in 1992. 74th Constitutional Amendment gave empowerment to the municipalities to act as a third tier of government, and they gave regular elections for each 5 years and reservations like SC, ST and OBC and 1/3 of the seats for the women, and they changed the 12 subjects and added 18 more subjects like urban planning, water supply, roads and housing, slum improvement and waste management, poverty alleviation like the subjects, and finance commissions to distribute the funds to the state and local bodies and metropolitan and district planning committees for large cities and districts to ensure coordinated development. These are the empowerment 74th Constitutional Amendment in 1992. We already seen what are the revenue sources for the municipality to make. Now we see the alternate ways for urban local bodies to raise funds. First, municipal bonds, raising long-term money from the capital market. Secondly, public-private partnership, collaborating with the private firms and infrastructure projects. better property tax collections using digital mapping and online platforms, land value capture, increasing the price for the lands due to public projects, and green taxes and congestion charges on polluting vehicles and overcrowded city zones. Corporate social responsibilities funds contribution from private corporations and also the international funding and loans grants from the World Bank, ADB, or government programs like smart city missions. On the previous question, we already discussed about the public-private partnerships. So we elaborate that can public-private partnership solve urban infrastructure problems? This is our question. So for the answer is definitely yes. PPP can help, but with proper regulations. Let's see detailing. Advantages of PPP: modelize private funds when municipal budgets are limited, brings modern technology and efficiency, shares responsibility between government and the private sectors. And for the example, Delhi Metro, Hyderabad metros, and urban water management projects. There is also a limitations and risk. Risk of projects becoming profit driven and eliminating the poor needs strong monitoring and transparency. Long contract may reduce flexibility of local bodies. In the conclusion, PPP can help, but it needs transparency and risk sharing and social inclusions. Now let's move on to the next topic, national education policy and federal concerns. Union government introduced new national education policy and implement all over India, but some of the states opposed and not implemented and makes the debate and conflicts around the education policies. Even though the education policy comes under the concurrent list, it creates a debate between the state and the union government. As I said, education is come under the concurrent list, but why? Initially, under the Government of India Act 1935, education was a provisional subject. However, after the independence, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 shifted education from state list to concurrent list because to ensure the uniformity in education around the country, especially in the higher education, science and technical field. The concurrent list allows both union and state legislative on education. This balance the national interest and the religious interest. The reason they are doing this for a national development is based on the education. To balance this, we can develop the country. So the education is come under the concurrent list. So it gives rise to the another question: can a state make its own education policy different from the union? Yes, the state can develop its own education policies, but the education comes under the concurrent list. For example, some of the states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and West Bengal, they are opposing the three language policy given by the union government. However, the state must not violate the national laws and constitutional provisions. State can modify the curriculum, language models, and the administration structure, but they cannot ignore the standards given by the UGC, NCRT, and AICTE. Conclusion: a state can make its own education policies, but it's remain within the framework of the central laws. Conclusion: a state can make its own policies, but within the certain framework of central laws. So the next question is, what happens if there is a conflict between the central and the state law on education? Article 254 of the Constitution applies here. The both Parliament and the state legislature pass the same law on a subject of education. The central law prevails. The state law becomes void to the extent of inconsistency. However, if the state law has received the president's assent, it can prevail in the state. Prevail in that. However, if the president, however, if a state, However, if a state law has However, if a state law has received a president's assent, it can prevail in that state only unless the president later overrides it. For example, if a union enforces a national education framework but the state passes a law against it, union will override it until unless the president interferes it. On the final note, education is a concurrent list, balance uniformity and diversity. State can make policies within the boundaries and central laws. Conflict solution central law provides Article 254 if the state is supported by the president.